Welcome to Top 20 Desktop Support Interview Questions and Answers. In this video, we will go over some of the most commonly asked questions during an interview for desktop support positions. Keep in mind that this educational video serves as an example of what to expect and to provide confidence during interview process. Your interview experience may vary in situation and difficulty. Question number 1.
Can you tell me about yourself?
Be very careful when answering this question because this is your first big chance to impress, and you can do so by stating the facts related to this job. Only talk about previous experience, education, and formal training related to this field. It is important to understand that follow-up questions may be related to anything you say at this point. So what I mean by this answer is that you want to talk about anything that relates to desktop support. So let's say you are interviewing for the first time for this type of position. You want to talk about your experience that relates to this job in any way possible. You can talk about hobbies and such, and about yourself on a personal level as well, but as long as you can relate it to this job in some way, this is the most beneficial answer you can give.
Question number 2.
You've received a trouble ticket that monitor is not working. What is the first thing you should do?
A lot of times cables are not plugged in correctly. First, I would check power, then video signal cable, and if both check out, make sure the computer itself is powered on. If interviewer asks for further troubleshooting steps, I explain that there is a possibility that video driver or maybe the monitor itself is simply bad. So what I mean by this answer is that sometimes we have to go down to basics when it comes to resolving issues, and that's exactly what interviewing is trying to figure out when asking this type of question. So of course, there's a chance that cables are loose, which happens. There is a chance that video driver is bad, but that is super rare, but it is something you might want to mention as a last resort. Although most of the time, it's either a loose cable or the monitor is simply bad or going bad.
Question number 3.
What is safe mode? How do you get to it? And what is it used for?
In order to reach safe mode, the computer must be restarted, and by pressing the F8 key before the operating system loads, you will arrive at a selection screen at which you will scroll up and select Safe Mode. Safe Mode is used to troubleshoot driver issues, hardware issues, and remove viruses or unwanted software. In Windows 10, the combination key is Shift plus Restart. So in this answer, when it comes to older operating systems like Windows XP, Windows 7, you would do it by pressing the F8 key when the operating system is booting. This will get you to a menu at which you can select a few different modes related to safe mode. One of them is safe mode. The other one is, for example, safe mode with networking. However, when it comes to Windows 10, it's a little bit different. While you're within Windows operating system, hold the Shift key and select the Restart button. This will put the computer in a maintenance mode, at which point you can navigate to perform a safe mode boot.
Question number 4.
What is an IP address and how to find it?
IP address is a number assigned to your computer to identify its location on a network, meaning that DHCP server will assign a number to each computer connected to a network as part of identification. You can find your IP address by using a command prompt and type in ipconfig/all. This will display full IP address with a lot more of useful information. Alternatively, you can, within operating system, look at the network adapter properties. So when it comes to this answer, IP address is something that each computer receives as soon as they connect to any type of network, whether it be physically or wirelessly. When it comes to DHCP server, essentially DHCP server can be a router, a switch, or a dedicated server that assigns these addresses to every computer that connects to this network.
Question number 5.
What is a default gateway?
You can see what the default gateway is by performing an ipconfig/all command through the CMD. Default gateway serves as a path to reach other networks. For example, in order to reach the internet outside of your business or home, you need a gateway that will open the way for you. Default gateway in a business environment is typically a proxy server. So when it comes to default gateways is always going to be your switch or a router. And this is when it comes to a simple home network or a simple business network. In a large business environment, it's going to be a proxy server because proxy server can monitor and filter any traffic that goes outside of your network.
Question number 6.
What is Active Directory?
Active Directory is a feature of Windows Server operating system and it contains user accounts, objects, host names, group policies, and domain services. For example, Active Directory will have information about user login credentials. In addition, it can contain group policies that will apply different permissions to user accounts that belong to specific groups within same domain. So in the nutshell, Active Directory in a business type of environment has the information about your PC login. So let's say a user goes to a computer, a random computer that's within a business, and tries to log into the computer. Chances are they will be using domain login credentials, which are configured within Active Directory. When it comes to group policies are created so that way, instead of creating special permissions for individual users, user is simply added to the group policy that has these permissions already pre-configured, and it applies it to that specific user.
Question number 7.
What is a domain?
Domain is a group of computers and users created for a network in order to control access. With a domain, you have a group of systems that are bound by the rules of centralized authentication server. In a domain, each system has to connect through the domain server using provided credentials. A computer user will have domain login access once their credentials are created or added to that specific domain within Active Directory. For example, your job's PC login will most likely be a domain login. So let's put this in a simple real-world explanation. If you got a brand new computer that you're trying to connect to the domain, first you have to get a host name from the domain controller itself. Once you get a host name, you would assign that host name to the computer, after which that computer, once added to the network, will have access to the domain resources. Same thing when it comes to adding a brand new user to the domain. So brand new user by default does not have a login or privilege to log into any computers that are controlled by that domain controller. So this is why we have to create a new user credentials within the domain for that specific user, which will allow them to log into the computer.
Question number 8.
You receive a trouble ticket that states, "Printer is not printing correctly."
This issue is caused by a bad or wrong printer driver. Solution is to acquire and install a correct printer driver. To expand on this question, as you've noticed, specifically points out a weird pattern on paper and not necessarily a faded or broken up patterns when it comes to printing or anything like that. So in this case, it's very clear that ink is not an issue that there is plenty of ink. So the only thing that can cause this, and you've probably seen this example before, where you send something to print, let's say a document, and it prints it out, but the pattern on it is really weird and it doesn't make any sense. This is a very clear case of a bad or wrong printer driver, after which you have to simply reinstall it.
Question number 9.
What are some commonly used LAN cables?
There are 4 different types of LAN cables commonly used: Cat5, Cat5e, Cat6, and Cat6a. Cat5 speeds are up to 100 megabits per second. Cat5e are up to 1000 megabits per second. Cat6 up to 1000 megabits certified gigabit. And Cat6 up to 10,000 megabits per second. All the speeds are based off 100 meters maximum distance. So the key here is to just remember different types and different type speeds available when it comes to commonly used LAN cables. Not to say that there aren't other LAN cables, there certainly are. There are many different types, but these are some of the most commonly used ones. And what you will most likely see in an older type of business environment is Cat5, which is only up to 100 megabits per second. The newer businesses will most likely have Cat5e, which is up to 1000 megabits per second, which brings it up to the gigabit speeds. So if need be, just kind of make sure you remember all the different speeds, so that way you can answer this properly.
Question number 10.
What is blue screen of death? BSOD.
Blue screen of death is most commonly caused by bad hardware. The error appears as a blue screen crashing the computer. Blue screen of death can be caused by hardware, software, or driver issues and conflicts. In order to troubleshoot blue screen of death, you will need to run a full hardware diagnostic on the PC and update all of the drivers. When it comes to blue screen of death, a lot of things can cause this. In my personal experience, hardware has been majority of the time the cause for blue screen of death. This can be caused by bad hard drive, bad video card, bad RAM. Sometimes it can be caused by software or a bad update on a computer, so make sure that everything's updated up to the current, and also can be caused rarely by a virus, so make sure that your antivirus is updated.
Question number 11.
What is DHCP?
DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, and it deals with handling of IP addresses for all computers connected to a network. Each computer is allowed to have connection to the network or internet resources after the DHCP server assigns an IP address dynamically. Dynamic type of IP addresses can change at any point. So what this means is that as soon as you connect a computer to the network, you take the LAN cable and you plug it into the computer, the DHCP server can see it and says, oh, okay, there's a new computer connected to the network. I'm going to give it an IP address so that I know that it exists, and also let it get basic access to the physical network. In this case, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol assigns it dynamically. So what happens is, if you unplug that computer and take it to somewhere else and plug it in, it will have a different IP address, hence it's assigned dynamically. It changes all the time.
Question number 12.
What is DNS?
DNS stands for Domain Name System, and it reroutes known host names to IP address that hosts its service. For example, DNS for Microsoft.com is located at 104.90.84.14 IP address, but it can change randomly. You could say that it serves as an address book for the host names, which are then translated into IP numbers in order for computers to understand it. In this example, it assigns and routes web address names to the web hosting service. If Microsoft.com changes its IP address, that'll be perfectly fine because the main name system will know that. Of course, you have to have a static IP address for this to work, so you don't want it to change all the time. However, for this web server, you just need to make changes to the settings that point to that IP address. So as soon as you change the IP address, you can go back in and say, okay, Microsoft.com is now at this new IP address, and this is what DNS does.
Question number 13.
What is VPN?
A virtual private network is commonly used as a secure way to connect from remote location to network resources in your business or company. For example, you can take your laptop to a coffee shop, start a VPN or create a VPN, and through it securely connect to a PC at work or access companies' emails and files. So let's say I do go to a coffee shop with my business laptop or work laptop. First thing that I would do once I connect to the Wi-Fi at that coffee shop, I will start a program, most likely, that will create a virtual private network connection between that coffee shop and my workplace. This usually happens with conjunction of a token key. So what would happen is I would launch the software. It would ask me for my credentials plus the token key, which is randomly generated. This creates a safe tunnel connection between 2 points.
Question number 14.
What is a ping command?
The ping command is used to determine whether your computer can reach external or internal resources. For example, through command prompt, type ping followed by the name of the websites to test connection. This function sends 4 packets of data which are sent back as acknowledgement of successful connection. It also provides the latency results measured in milliseconds. So in this example, you can use the ping command to test to see if there's a connection between your computer and the website, but it can be also used to test whether you can reach different resources on the same network, for example, another computer over the network. When it comes to testing connection between multiple points, a traceroute command is used instead.
Question number 15.
What is a group policy?
Active Directory assigns a group policy to each new user added into the database. For example, if you work in desktop support, your user login credentials and permissions will be assigned to a group policy. In Active Directory, you can take any user and place them into a group that has predetermined settings. Group policy can restrict read, write, or execute and restrict access to network resources. So in this example, you can basically just drop a new user into a group that already has predetermined settings. So instead of you having to go in and create a new user by itself and then assign different permissions to it that would either allow, for example, to read, write, execute, or admin privileges, you would simply take that new user and drop him into a group that has predetermined settings. So let's say you do desktop support for this company. Once you do start working for them, all they will do is create a login for you, give you a login ID, and that login ID will be in a group most likely called tech support.
Question number 16.
What is a .pst file?
.pst file is a file extension used by Microsoft Outlook Archives. An email archive would commonly be known as a PST. Every time a user creates an archive in Microsoft Outlook, it creates a PST file which is stored locally on the computer. So whenever the computer crashes, for example, and the hard drive goes bad, this file is destroyed as well because it is stored locally only. Not to be confused with an OST file, which is basically a cached version of your inbox that is also stored on an Exchange server remotely.
Question number 17.
How would you change folder permissions?
You can change folder permissions through group policy, but it can also be done at local level with administrator privileges. Under folder properties, select Security tab and then Edit, after which a pop-up will provide an ability to add users and allow for read, write, execute, or full permissions. This type of thing is typically done with server storage where users are allowed to access certain parts of it. So let's say there is a server within your business that everybody has access to, but they only are allowed to do certain things to the folder and the files within it. This is where you would change folder permissions.
Question number 18.
What is the difference between a switch and a hub?
There are a couple of main differences between switch and a hub. Hub can be used to connect multiple computers to a single network, while switch can be used to create multiple segments of the same network. Second difference is that with a hub, all computers connected share bandwidth, which can create latency issues. Switch can regulate this by only sending data packets to a computer that requested the data and is able to regulate the bandwidth. Interestingly enough, this question can trip up a lot of people. The main thing to kind of keep in mind is that switch is a lot newer technology and it's better at handling a larger amount of computers, whether it comes to switching, data handling, or bandwidth.
Question number 19.
How would you recover data from virus-infected computer?
In order to successfully and safely recover data, you would extract the hard drive from the infected computer. Afterwards, you would slave it to a second computer that has updated virus definitions, updated Microsoft patches and drivers. From there, you would scan the drive for viruses, and once virus is removed, you can extract the data that needs to be recovered. If at all possible, I would avoid recovering any data, but if it's 100% necessary, then you have to make sure that the slaved drive does not contain any further viruses before you attempt to recover anything. Also, with a slave drive, you're not running the virus in the background whatsoever because you're not using that hard drive as the main operating system that you are currently using. So this is why it's slaved. It's not able to execute anything unless you intentionally go look for the virus on the slave drive and then run it. Otherwise, it's perfectly safe to scan that slaved drive with antivirus software.
Question number 20.
Why should we hire you?
This is your last chance to sell yourself to this employer. Mention all of the qualifications related to this job, all of the work experience, all of the education and certifications that you may have. Don't forget to smile, make eye contact, and confidently explain why all these things would make you a perfect candidate. In addition to this video, I just wanted to mention how it is very important to do your research about the company you're applying with. This will further prepare you and increase your chances in getting this awesome job.
And that's the end of this video. Check out my channel as I have lots of different topics on other different IT positions. For example, network administration, system administration, help desk, and etc. I wish you best of luck. Please let me know in the comments if you got a job with help of this video. I also wish to thank all the people that joined my channel. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's completely unnecessary. I just want to say that. But I do see that you appreciate my content to that extent that you wish to support me. Thank you so much. And again, best of luck.